Hi everyone, it's Mara from Epic Systems. Today I'm going to be giving you an introduction to our mobile app. This video will cover the basics of our Markus Mobile Sites app so you can get familiar with it and understand how to use it. We'll start on the home screen. This is what the Markus Mobile app icon looks like. If you need help downloading the app, that's covered in another tutorial. I'll leave the link for that tutorial in the description of this video. The login screen is the first screen that you see once you click on the app. At the top, you can see the name of the engineer that you're signed in as, and at the bottom is the version number of the app along with the company that you work for. You would put the password in, which I'm not going to do on camera, and then press the next button. The next screen is the clock on screen. You do have the option to add a note here, and you might also see a box asking for your odometer reading, depending on the way that your system is set up. Then, after inputting any necessary information, you press the clock on button. You want to ensure that you don't press the skip clocking on button because that will prevent you from being able to work on any jobs. After the clock on screen, you've got the start of day check screen. Start of day checks are similar to surveys, but instead of being completed on a job by job basis, they're general questions that are answered once at the beginning of the workday and then sent to the back office. This is the dial screen. It appears a few times throughout the app, and this is the screen that shows whether or not the data from your device has been successfully passed to the back office system. On this screen, we want to see these 4 ticks here. If you don't see the ticks, it means the dial has failed, which is most often due to a weak internet connection. The app will still work while offline, but it won't be able to update the back office until your connection improves. Once you've dialed successfully, you can press Next. After you've done your start of day checks and everything's dialed back successfully, you reach the Places to Go screen. The Places to Go screen is the central dashboard of the Markus mobile app, and it shows you a list of all of the jobs you need to attend in chronological order. There are also a few key buttons at the bottom. Starting from the left, you've got the Choose button, which we'll come back to in a little while. Next, you've got the Refresh button, which you can use to run a dial. You could also run a dial by dragging downwards from the top of the screen. This can be handy if you know that you've just been issued some work and you want to see it right away before giving the mobile app a chance to do a dial on its own. Next, you've got the search button, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can use it to find a specific job within your list of jobs by searching for any field. Finally, you've got the main menu button. This can take you to a few different places, and we'll have a look at that towards the end of the video as well. For now, let's click into a job and see how that works. Once you click into the job, you can see some details about the job, including the site, some site contacts, previous operatives who've been to the job, and a description of what you need to do. You can then choose to accept or reject the job using the buttons at the bottom. If you accept the job, you'll see the estimated time for arrival screen. On this screen, you input your estimated journey time either by typing it in or pressing the plus/minus buttons. If you're unsure, pressing the pin beside the job address will launch your GPS app routed to the job site, if you have a GPS app downloaded. We also display the site contact information on this screen so that you can communicate directly with your clients from the Markus mobile app and update them if need be. Then, after a successful dial, you'll be taken to the en route screen. You leave your device on this screen until you reach the job site, and all of the travel time will be recorded by the app and logged against the job. Once you arrive on site, press Next to see the health and safety warnings on the job. Once you've read the information, you're required to tick the checkbox to acknowledge that you've read and understood any of the potential risks that could occur at the job and are happy to proceed. If you weren't happy, you could press the Abort button to abort the job. You could select an end status and put in the notes why you felt that you needed to abort the job. However, in this case, we're going to continue, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to press Next. Now you've reached the risk assessment stage of the job. As you can see, these are mandatory questions, which means you wouldn't be able to proceed without filling them in. There are 3 different types of questions, for example, this document question, some yes or no questions, and there can also be questions with text boxes or numbered answers. Pressing Next once again causes the app to do a dial. This time I'm going to show you what it looks like in the back office system. Looking specifically at the operative status dashboard widget, we can see that before the dashboard is reloaded, which it does automatically every 15 minutes, it says that the operative is en route. Once I've manually refreshed it, it shows that the operative has done the risk assessment and no risks were highlighted. This can be a handy tool for when risks are identified so the back office is aware immediately. So back on our mobile app, after the dial screen, the job details screen appears again. This is very similar to the previous job details screen and it just shows you some information about the job and any previous visits at the job. At the bottom, you've got the Abort button again, and you've also got the Photos button. It's generally mandatory, or at least strongly encouraged for you to take a photo at the start of the visit. On this occasion, I'm just going to take a blank photo from the camera, but there is also the option to take a photo from your gallery and upload it to the job if that's what you wanted to do. Once you've added the photo, you can also add a note. Most systems have a pre-populated caption in this box, but you're free to add any further detail. The next thing to do on the job are the surveys. Surveys differ depending on your trade as an operative, as well as potentially the trade of the job. That depends on how your system is set up. I'll click into one of the surveys so that you can see what they look like. This particular survey has 2 sections, and one of the sections within has only 2 questions. However, both of these questions are mandatory. We understand that from the asterisks that are displayed near the questions. I have the option to skip these questions and then leave the screen, but it's most likely that you won't see that option and you'll have to fill it in order to proceed, depending on how your system is set up. In this case, I'm going to leave the screen and continue. The next screen is the ordered work screen. Depending on the way your app has been set up, you'll either see a list of SORs or a large text box. If you see the text box, you should type in a description of the work you did at the job for the back office to look at. If you get a list of SORs, or in my case just the one SOR, you mark the SORs you've done as delivered. In this case, I'm going to mark the SOR as fully delivered by pressing the red X under the fully delivered heading. Alternatively, if I'd only delivered 1 and 3 had been ordered, I could just type that into the This Delivered box. Once again, depending on the way that you're set up, you might also see a plus button at the bottom of this screen near the Next button. This will allow you to add extra SORs that might not have been ordered but that you completed. The next screen is another one that you may or may not see depending on the type of work that you're carrying out and whether or not variations are allowed. This is the variation sales screen. From here, I can type in a description of any variation works carried out. The next screen is the materials screen. This screen has the same visual format as the ordered work screen in the sense that you might either have a long list of parts to pick from, or you'll have a big text box where you can type in the materials that you've used. As you can see, there were no materials added to the job from the back office. So the Add button appears at the bottom for me to add the parts myself. At this stage, we've almost completed the job. We just need to close down the visit and do a few other small tasks. This is the End of Visit screen. On this screen, you'll pick a status for the job to go to after completing the visit. So if the job was completed, you can obviously choose Complete. If you ran out of time, you'd select Run Out of Time, and so on. It's worth noting that the statuses listed on this screen are personalizable, so you might have completely different statuses here, and that's fine. You just need to select the one that's right for the job that you're on. You can also add an End of Visit photo to the job, just the way you did with the Start of Visit photo. You could also add any extra information about this job to the Notes text box on this screen. And if you needed to keep this job on your device, you could press the Retain button. Next, you're asked for your signature to sign off on the job. For this, most customers tend to have a customer satisfaction survey. When this comes up, you would hand the device over to the tenant and allow them to fill this in. If they didn't want to fill it in, you could just press Skip. This is an example of what the questions could look like with starred rankings, but we do also have variations on this. Then the client is asked to sign. This happens regardless of whether or not they've opted into the survey. You can press Change Sign Type if the person signing is not the customer, or if for whatever reason they can't sign. You can also press Change Name if the name that's filled in is incorrect. Then let them sign and press Next. Once they've signed and pressed Next, After running a successful dial, the app takes you back to the Places to Go screen. Coming back to the buttons at the bottom of the Places to Go screen, let's look at the Choose button. From here, if it was the end of the working day, you could choose to clock off. The clock off screen essentially mirrors the clock on screen, but I'm not going to clock off just yet. I'm going to go back. The other option is to select non-job activities. Using the non-job activities screen, you can record time for anything that isn't a job. For example, if you had a doctor's appointment, you could record the activity as medical and then put in the estimated end. This will be visible on the operative status dashboard widget that we looked at earlier. The list of non-job activities is also personalizable, which means that you will see whatever has been set up for you. As you can see, at the bottom of the Places to Go screen, it now says End instead of Choose. You can click on that button to end your non-job activity so that you're able to begin working on your new job, because you can't accept jobs whilst engaged in a non-job activity. The final feature we're going to look at today is the main menu button. Now, there are a lot of customizable options turned on in our demo system that the majority of you won't have, so I'm only going to talk you through the main options. Firstly, the settings button. This takes you to the settings screen where you input your operative ID and the URL of the back office system. This is usually configured once when you first download the app and generally not changed after. Then you've got the YouTube channel button, which, as you can imagine, takes you to this YouTube channel. Then you've got the messages button. The messages button takes you to the messages. Staff in the back office can send you messages, which you can then see from this screen. The next button we're going to look at is the All Photos button. This takes you to a screen which shows you any photos that haven't yet been sent to the back office. This can be handy to know if you're working somewhere with bad signal or weak Wi-Fi. Once you've completed the job and found a stronger internet connection, you can check if all of your photos have been sent back successfully. If you can see some photos haven't been sent back, you can run a dial to send them back. Now we're back at the home screen and the tutorial is over. I've demonstrated a lot of the core mobile app features, but there's so much more that our app can do. If you want any further information on anything shown in this video, please feel free to get in touch via any of the channels displayed here and check out the rest of our videos to learn more.